So welcome to 2019. We are heads down and ready to cope with the next 12 months, I think. I hope nobody has some terrible accident over the fact that I have a 3-second intro. I'm sure you can cope with that. The current trend is at the beginning of any year for 10 by 10 board game challenges and 20 by 5s and so on has really made me have to think about my board gaming collection and the games I play. And I've decided to do a little log of everything I play. And if I enjoy it, I put a smiley face. And if I don't enjoy it, I put a sad face. And it's strange because I had a few games of One Deck Dungeon. I just wasn't getting into it at all. It's not a game I've been playing regularly. But I played several games and it just ended in disaster. I didn't enjoy it. And I think it's maybe because I was trying... You look at the archer and you think, oh, she's got really balanced characteristics. She'll be good. But that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes I think you need somebody who has a speciality, who isn't balanced, because then you can, if you have to flee 1 or 2 times, then it's no big deal, but you can start building up your experience and your skills. And that's what I did with the rogue today. And I really enjoyed it. I got through the dungeon and I defeated the dragon for the first time ever. I've never won that game before, so I was really, really pleased. So I don't know, sometimes with games you just have to be patient and maybe rethink the way you're playing it, because One Deck Dungeon is highly regarded by a lot of people, and my frustrations with it were just me playing it wrong, I think. And so when you actually manage to get through and you figure out, hey, maybe the archer's a bit rubbish and I should try somebody else, then you can learn to get used to a game after something like that. The other game I played today is Elder Sign, and again, I'd had a couple of games recently that were just they were just so annoying and frustrating, and compared to something like Arkham Horror, there's not much setup, but compared to something like Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, there is a lot of setup. It's fiddly, and there are a lot of fiddly rules like, oh no, that card's got a midnight effect, I need to pay attention to that, and then I need to pay attention to the Mythos card, which has also got a midnight effect, and then these characters have got this ability and that character's got that ability, and I need to take that into account, and I could have not died if I'd have done that. And it's one of those sort of games sometimes, but I think it's at the very limits of my frustration. I think if when a game is more complicated than Elder Sign, there's no way I'm going to manage with it. So and I played a game today of 2 characters, so it was a bit more manageable, but I died horribly and I did really badly, but I enjoyed it more because I was just concentrating on those 2 characters. And even though Yig awakened, and as my characters didn't have a common item, a unique item, and a spell, each one needed to have those 3 things, they were devoured. But I still enjoyed it. It was so good fun. So again, Elder Sign is in my good books. I also use the Blessed and Cursed dice from the Unseen Forces expansion, and they were fine. One of the characters was blessed for a while, and she rolled the extra die, and that was fine to deal with. It's not an extra huge burden of rules to have to cope with. Another game I enjoyed recently is Apocalypse Chaos. Yes, it's a nice small footprint. It's a dice chucking, dice drafting, strategic puzzle game that looks like a sci-fi action game, which it kind of is and it kind of isn't. It's more a puzzle game, and I think it's really neat. And I just like how it's a bit like Ghost Stories, but it's got a much smaller footprint, so it's a lot more useful to me on my limited space. So I enjoyed that one. I look forward to playing that more in the new year, because that's on my so-called 10x10. One thing I did when I was frustrated with Elder Sign was put the Cards of Cthulhu in its place, but I had a good game of that as always. But Elder Sign is my Cthulhu big old quest game, because Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu is nice and light, and Elder Sign is just that little bit more fiddly. So it may still stay on my 10x10. However, Mistfall, I've always had struggles with Mistfall and Heart of the Mists. I've tried to house rule them to make them just that little bit more easier to deal with, that little bit more straightforward and fluid, rather than having this little rule means you can't do this little rule means you can't do that, this little rule means that you can't attack that enemy because they are a range 2 enemy, and even though this enemy is range 1 and you've knocked them out, you've got them dazed so they can't attack, then you still can't attack the other enemy because it's still at range 2, and there's just too much. It's too fiddly. I cannot stand it anymore. I'm not going to have to house rule a game to death in order to make it work, because I may as well just write my own game. If you're house ruling a game out of existence, there is a serious problem with my tastes and the actual game. So Mistfall and Heart of the Mists, I think we've seen the last of them. But I did my absolute best. I played them to death. I've wasted far too much time on them. And however, as always, I would say that I really like Shadowscape, because it's just that bit more simple. Same amount of characters, but Mistfall and Heart of the Mists, they're just rule upon rule upon rule. And I saw a really good interview with Jervis Johnson on Warhammer TV, and he was talking about the best kind of rules are the ones where you tell somebody and they say, well, that's obvious, isn't it? So it's kind of rules that are intuitive. And he was saying, if you want to make something work and you just keep having to add and add and add more and more rules in order to make it work, then you really need to look at what you're doing and maybe rethink what you're trying to achieve, and look at how you're implementing the thing that you're trying to do, because adding and adding and adding more rules is not necessarily the answer. It's just gonna make a messy system. And for me, I know a lot of people seem to have a lot of people like Mistfall, and I just don't think deck builders, which it sort of is, are my kind of thing. I really like the world and the artwork and everything like that, but the rules themselves, I'm having to house rule them out of existence. And so that tells me that this game is just not for me. Whereas Shadowscape, just that a fair old bit simpler, is a kind of game that I like. So, it's just a shame, but there you go. 2 big boxes will be leaving my world. However, one which should be coming into my world and will hopefully be my last game for a while, because I don't plan on buying any more board games, definitely not, will be Dawn of the Zeds, which is coming from abroad. So I look forward to getting hold of that and giving it a good play. I do like the Victory Point Games pizza box format, which sadly they won't be producing anymore, I guess, because they've been bought out and they've been producing big box games. But they really have a collectible quality, the pizza box games. and I have Darkest Night, first edition, with its tiny counters, which are a bit too tiny sometimes. But I mean, it's like the Doom counters in Elder Sign; they're really too small. But anyway, I'm jabbering on a bit, but I'll bring this vlog to an end. But yeah, I'm looking forward to a good game year upcoming in 2019. I'm hoping not to buy it anymore because I just want to enjoy the ones I've got. So as soon as Dawn of the Zeds arrives, the Lost Expedition has a expansion coming in. But apart from that, I have no plans to get any more, he says. So yeah, we'll see how the new year goes. Happy New Year and happy gaming.